Hey guys, we are looking at the third of these 5 reworks, and that is Raynor. Raynor has always been an easy to play hero in Heroes of the Storm that has a lot of potential. Before his last rework, he didn't see a lot of play in the highest levels of competitive, but he was a pretty solid hero that could be used in any area. After his rework, he was used a lot in competitive to the point that I think he's in like 30 to 50% of the matches in competitive, depending on which region you're looking at. And he's been rather interesting. I mean, he's more fun than he used to be, but he still is kind of that hero that many teams draw straws to decide which assassin player is actually going to be playing the Raynor. With all of that being said, Raynor is getting a rework in this upcoming patch, and that rework is a little interesting because he's a hero that's played a lot, he's a hero that's rather popular, and he's a hero that was in a good spot in the meta, which makes me wonder why he was getting reworked. So, because I'm not sure why he's getting reworked, I always like to read the developers' comments, and they said, while Jimmy had a pretty large overhaul a while back, we definitely had some more room to make things more interesting and fun. We wanted to make sure that he was still pretty straightforward to play, but we wanted to inject more fun into his talent tree, especially his level 20s. So basically, they just wanted to make him more fun. And he was that draw straws hero that was decent in the meta, but kind of boring to play. So let's see if they did that. If you're unfamiliar with Raynor, Raynor is an auto attack hero that is heavily based on his auto attack damage. He has 3 major abilities in his kit. He has a knockback that slows and does a decent amount of damage. He has a W, which is an attack speed steroid that also increases your movement speed. So you can see, move a little faster, it times out right about now, and you move a little slower. It increases your attack speed, but it also resets your attack. What that means is I attack 1.25 times per second, and there's a gap in between that. You can reduce that gap by activating your W and firing off an extra shot very quickly, which is why one of the first things that I teach people about with Raynor when I'm coaching them is a burst combo, something that looks a little bit like this. Auto attack, reset, Q, auto attack, auto attack, auto attack while the slow is going out, and we did 1600 damage where an average assassin would have about 3000 health. That's about half of someone's health in a very short period of time. You could even start with an extra auto attack or plan out crits a little bit better, but for the most part, that is the combo that I generally recommend to people so that they learn, hey, we can get someone down to that 50% mark. As we get them down to that 50% mark, we can then go and just finish them off. And there we go. We just killed an assassin. Now, what have they changed for Raynor? Well, the standard base kit's the same. He's got a knockback, he's got an auto attack steroid, he's got a self heal that you can activate to heal for 25% of your health. Your basic attacks lower the cooldown of this, doubled against heroes. You have your trait. Every 4th basic attack is a splash in a small area. It's small enough to where it doesn't splash to these nearby guys. And it deals more than double damage every 4th attack. What have they done? Well, they started off by lowering his damage by about 9%. So that means that he's going to be doing 9% less damage. He already was really low in that if Greymane just presses W and attacks in human form, he's doing more DPS than Raynor was doing by using all of Raynor's abilities. So Raynor already had lower DPS than someone like a Greymane. But that was baseline without any talents, of course. So lowering that even more means that they're going to add some fun stuff to his kit that can definitely increase his damage. So let's go through and talk about... Oh, they also lowered the cooldown and damage of penetrating around a little bit. Or did they decrease the damage? Let me double check that. Yeah, they lowered the cooldown, mana cost, and damage of penetrating around, but it wasn't by that much. It was a 10% damage reduction, 10% cooldown reduction, 7.5% mana cost reduction. Yeah. So let's get into his talents, and I'm going to treat him as if he's a new hero approaching these talents. Level 1, I say that, and then I'm immediately going to say, well, Ace in the Hole is different. So Ace in the Hole, enemies hit by Give 'em Some Pepper are slowed by 10%. Penetrating round deals 25% more damage to stunned or slowed heroes. This used to increase your damage of everything by 10%, including penetrating round and basic attacks. Now it's only penetrating round. The benefit to this is that it's a little bit easier to plan. You can get your crit ready, hit him with a crit, and then get that bonus damage off. and that allows you to get that 25% bonus damage. And so it actually could be planned out a little bit better, which is kind of neat. The downside is that it doesn't increase your auto attack damage. We go to Exterminator. Basic attacks deal 50% more damage to minions, mercs, and monsters. This increases to 125% while Inspire is active. Passive, Inspire does not expire on friendly minions and mercs. What? Gives all allied minions and mercs 30% attack speed and 10% movement. So you're telling me, if I take this talent, and I kill this merc, and let's say I kill this merc, and then I press W on it. Hold on. Hold up. All minions get that. Let's say these minions too. And I walk away, and they all have bonus attack speed. 30% bonus attack speed that never expires. That's actually pretty cool. That's actually... Look at them go. Look at them go. That's actually pretty cool. Okay, I haven't been excited about a talent in a while, and I actually really like that. That's unreal. It's actually really busted. This will be nerfed. But, imagine giving that to a siege camp. You get an early siege camp, and you literally just buff it, and then walk away. And that thing's this is gonna be attacking 30% faster. You give movement speed to this guy, like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm overselling it. I could be overselling it. Veteran Marksman. So this is a lone talent. So let's talk about what this talent originally does. It has a quest. Every time that the primary target of Give 'em Some Pepper is a hero, you permanently increase the damage bonus of Give 'em Some Pepper by 0.75%. The lone is that it gets 60% initially, and every death reduces this bonus by 15%. So let's bring out a calculator really quick. Assuming that you don't die, you'll have your 60% on top of 125, which is already there. And then you'll also be adding in 0.75 every time that you get a crit on someone. Now, if you lose, or if you die, you're going to lose 15. So in order to compensate, we go 15, what is it, divided by 0.75. You need 20 attacks per death to compensate for the lone, losing pieces of the lone. And that's not 20 attacks, that's 20 stacks. So that's 20 crits of the fourth attack. So it does give this an early game boost, but I don't know if you're ever truly going to get to back up that like late game boost unless you don't die. So this is actually a great example of a lone talent where if you lose this, you're taking kind of a subpar talent, but if you have this, it's pretty decent and it can continue stacking. Being on a Raynor is pretty decent because it's actually kind of hard to kill a Raynor. So that's his level 1 talents. I think this one's probably one of the better of the lone talents. Level 4. Fight or Flight does basically the same thing that it did before, right? It wasn't changed, yeah. So Fight or Flight just gives you armor, reduces the cooldown of your E. It was the meta pick. Sustained rounds, Give 'em Some Pepper heals you or part of your max health. It's increased if it's a hero. This is not the damage you deal, so it doesn't really synergize with this. It's kind of its own thing. Behemoth armor, gain 200 max health. Quest, every time Give 'em Some Pepper's primary target is a hero, gain 8% or 8 max health. That was basically what it was before. It just got buffed from 5 to 8. It's pretty decent in the solo lane, but otherwise it's not really that great. Fight or Flight's still going to be the pick in both competitive and non-competitive. Level 7. Heavy Slugs. Increase penetrating rounds slow by 15% and its duration by 1.5. So instead of at 2 seconds, it's 3.5. Fuel the Rush. Reduce the mana cost of Adrenaline Rush. While Inspire is active, increase Adrenaline Rush's cooldown reduction from basic attacks by 300%. Keep in mind, basic attacks can hit anyone. It's doubled against heroes, so you will gain 1.5 seconds shaved off per auto attack against anything, and 3 seconds shaved off per auto attack against heroes. This could be a really powerful tool for keeping your E going, because if you combine that with just a flat 10% reduction, it's actually really good. And then Unstable Compound, increase the area so you could finally crit all of these. And each enemy hero hit by giving some pepper gives you 10 mana and reduces the cooldown of penetrating rounds. So this is kind of the go-to if you're going kind of a Q build, where this is a good talent and it's been buffed and it's a really good talent right now because you can have your shield going a lot. But if you're not in this, or your healing going a lot, but if you're not in the soul lane, you might not need healing as often as you would need more damage and knockback. Then we go into his level 10s, which let me just double check. Have they changed anything? They have not changed anything in his level 10s. So I'll show you his level 10s really quick if you're unfamiliar with them. But Hyperion sends out a very slow moving thing that deals decent damage to everyone in that area. And it also does bonus damage to structures. And then your other one is a Raider. So it kind of turns you like Rexar a little bit, where you get this little Raider that you can control by pressing R. It can check bushes for you, it can reveal certain areas for you, and it also does a pretty decent amount of damage. So if you need single target damage and you're willing to micro this Raynor, or this Banshee around, then this is a pretty good option. If you need more AoE damage, or you're looking for more structure damage or winning specific objectives that are time-based, then Hyperion tends to be the best option for that. So we'll just grab Hyperion for now, and we'll go into the level 13 talents. So, debilitating rounds was removed. Now they have Line 'em Up. Line 'em Up reduces the cooldown of penetrating rounds by 3 seconds. Penetrating rounds hitting 2 or more enemy heroes reduces the cooldown by an additional 3 seconds. So, we have a basic baseline of 6-second cooldown on penetrating round, which can get lower if we took like Unstable Compound. Then we have a potential of a 3-second cooldown if we hit 2 people, which also could be potentially lower if we hit Unstable Compound. So overall, pretty high DPS with your knockbacks. We have Giddy Up. Giddy Up, you gain 10% movement speed while mounted or unmounted. Inspire grants 10% more movement speed. This was 8%. It got moved up to 10%. Give Me More. What? Increase Adrenaline Rush's healing by 50%, while Inspire is active. Gain 1 basic attack range. Weird. I think this was a later talent. It says on the thing it was moved from level 13, but it is level 13, so I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. So more attack range is always good. Increased healing is always good. But for the most part, it's competing with a really great talent for this tier. And a talent that was busted when it was 10% that it had to be nerfed down to 8%. Now it's back up to 10%. Level 16. We have Paint Them Red. This was kind of the meta pick for a long time with Raynor because it was a lot more damage on your Q and it was a lot more survivability, so you didn't need to take all the healing talents because if someone jumped on you, you could heal a lot off of your Q. Rallying Cry. Increase the attack speed bonus of Inspire by 20%. After 12 basic attacks, cast Inspire for free. And you're going to be attacking pretty fast with it, so it's potentially that you're going to be casting a lot of Inspires as you're going. Bounty Hunter. Give him some pepper's target is a hero. Sorry, if give him some pepper's target is a hero, it deals an additional 3% of max health to the target and grants you 10 armor. You can activate it to get 1 proc of give him some pepper. So you could crit and then double crit. So kind of like what I was saying, you could prep 1 crit, and then you could crit, and then you could double crit, and then you could go into like a 3rd crit potentially, right? And so that was kind of the gimmick of that. So you could get some pretty high damage off, percent health damage off, but it was never really the pick just because you did enough damage to frontline. You didn't really need percent health, and with it being kind of a long cooldown, it was easier to just go with this and just use Q a lot. Level 20, let me close this. We should have a lot of new options here. Because they said that they were going to spice up level 20. So, Cavalry arrived. Give them some pepper lowers the cooldown of Hyperion by 5 seconds. If the primary target is a hero, these heroes are targeted by the Hyperion for 100% increased damage. So, if you ult, let's grab this. If you ult, and then you focus on one person, Hyperion now does increased damage to that one target. That's okay. Hyperion's single target damage is pretty bad, but whatever. I mean, I guess it just marks each of them. So you can mark one and then mark another and then mark another. Duskwing upgrade. Increase its health and least range of the Raider by 100%. Its basic attack lowers enemy armor by 2 for 1 second, stacks up to 25, which means that you can get 50% armor reduction, which means that damage to that target is going to be not doubled, but increased by 50%. Duskwing used to also increase the damage of it, I believe, by a certain amount. So I think the armor is a good trade-off because that's going to increase your damage and the Duskwing's damage. So that's pretty good. The only downside is you lose the benefit of basically just throwing it on a Tracer and then ignoring the Tracer and just DPSing their front line. But otherwise, it's actually kind of cool. Raider's Roll. Adrenaline Rush grants unstoppable and continues healing for an additional 2 seconds. The additional duration ends upon reaching 70% health. So if you're below 70%, you get all these benefits. If you're above 70%, you don't get any benefits. Well, you still get the unstoppable, but Sergeant Pepper. Give him some pepper. Now activates every 3 basic attacks instead of every 4 basic attacks. And execute orders. Reduce Raynor's death timer to 30 seconds. Upon death, the Hyperion is cast towards an enemy hero. I don't usually like death talents because if you die, you're leaving the fight. But this one's interesting because it also lowers your death timer. If they have someone who's just diving on you every fight, this actually is kind of interesting. You could throw a Hyperion, and then you could get jumped on and throw a second Hyperion. And have a lower cooldown on death so that you can join your team again. But generally, if you're dying at level 20 and you don't have an instant buyback, your team probably just lost the game. Unless, like, they're committing everything to kill you, and then there's nothing left. Like, they've got a Butcher who's going to suicide to kill you, then this is a pretty decent talent. But otherwise, I don't see this being used that often. So, with all of that being said, let's talk a little bit about some potential builds. Let me reset the talents, and I'm going to go through what I would imagine is a standard build for Raynor. Now, Raynor only really had one build going forward, and it kind of, everything else kind of was just underwhelming. You would go Exterminator, you'd go Fight or Flight, you would then go Unstable, you would go Hyperion, you would go what was here to lower the cooldown of your Q, and then paint them red into your Execute, which we don't have Execute anymore. So is this really that worth it? Probably not. We would probably go with like Sergeant Pepper, but we don't really have anything to benefit the extra crits. So we would probably go Raider's Roll just to play it safe, or potentially go into this. Oddly enough, for them to spice up the level 20, you don't really have a great level 20 option in a standard build. So I would go with like this or this. And that was the standard build, and it still could be the standard build. You now have one extra benefit that you can buff up these minions. Potentially, we could do a different version of this to give more attack speed, but by level 16, it's not really worth it. What I mean by that is, if you could give 50% attack speed to these guys early game, it would be absolutely busted. But late game, camps die fast, and it's not really worth it. So I'm not going to really recommend this talent too much, but there are definitely other options. So that's the standard build, and I think it's going to be the standard build. There is also kind of a solo lane / tanky build that I think is going to show up, where if you're going to be tanky or anything, I probably wouldn't recommend this. But if you're in the solo lane, your odds of dying are really, really low. So you'd potentially even go this so you could bully more in the solo lane. And then you would probably go with Fight or Flight still, just because we want to have that armor so you can survive against burst, and we want the lower cooldown. And then if you're just trying to bully the enemy laner, I'd imagine Fuel the Rush is going to be better than Unstable Compound, because you're going to have a super low cooldown on your heal. In the solo lane, you generally go Raynor's Raider so you can bully the solo laner even more. And then this is where it probably gets pretty interesting. We can increase the healing and gain extra attack range. And that means that it's going to be easier to keep the cooldown low. And then in the solo lane, I mean, you could go with the knockback and heal yourself. You could go with buffing your minions if you wanted to. And the higher attack speed means the lower cooldowns and all of this. Or we could kind of add a little bit more damage to it and finally start actually joining team fights and looking for the ability to kill people. But I personally think that if we're lowering their armor, the attack speed might be kind of interesting, and just constant attack speed. And you can either lower their armor, or you can even go with Raider's Roll, since you're going to be super tanky. And I mean, if we were to just kind of go like this, let me take some damage. Oh, go away. Okay. So if I was to press my E, I'm gaining my full health bar. Oh, hold on. Let me toggle cooldowns. Okay. So the extra healing stopped because I hit 75% health. But let's say I press E. Look at this E cooldown, right? And so that's kind of crazy. And then we get Inspire to pop again, and let's say we pressed E again, we would have an E off cooldown. I mean, you're basically unkillable if you're hitting heroes. And this build could be really interesting because it's also a lot of armor. I don't think this procs on towers. Oh, it does proc at half value on towers. So even on towers, I mean, look at how fast we could just tank our way through a tower and just heal our way through this. Like, look at the cooldown of this and the extra attack speed that we have. This build would make you practically unkillable, and you don't even ever need to use your E. And then we're just stacking this up, and we're doing a chunk of damage. I mean, if I didn't even look at the DPS of this, but I mean, we're doing 700 DPS without Q. And our second Inspire hasn't even popped yet. So now our second Inspire pops. And we're going to wait until Inspire's done. And now Inspire's done, we're going to do our Inspire. And now the second Inspire pops. And, I mean, that's not bad DPS. Plus 700 DPS while being unkillable seems kind of crazy. So this build seems like it has potential. I initially said that it was just a solo lane build, but you're practically unkillable. That's kind of crazy. So I would say this build is probably going to get nerfed. Of course, you don't get this part until later, but even without this part, just the extra 50% healing here and the extra and the lower cooldowns from different areas, I mean, this build seems really strong. And since you're practically unkillable, taking the lone is a lot less risky. So, I think this might be the meta build for at least until some of these talents get nerfed. There's just way too much synergy between these talents. You don't get Exterminator, but you almost don't need Exterminator. But I think, so I would say those are the two standard builds. Q build with Exterminator. You could go Ace in the Hole for like the little bit more burst damage with Q, but I think Exterminator is just so worth it. But I would say it depends on map. Like, if you need Exterminator, grab Exterminator, and if you can abuse like the bonuses from that, awesome. Otherwise, and Exterminator didn't always do that, right? Am I just crazy? Okay, I'm not crazy. So yeah, that is Raynor's rework. I would say those are the two best directions that you can go, is kind of a Q with either Exterminator or Ace in the Hole, or an auto attack build that focuses on self-healing, and then you basically just stay in fights forever, just self-heal, and just out-sustain the enemies, and melt them down. You could go either ults, but I think that having that single target, just to kind of focus on the same target you're focusing on, is going to be worth a lot more, since you'll last a long time in these fights. Like, I mean, this is just, it's just crazy. So much value. I don't think you need this talent. You could go Duskwing, but having the Unstoppable is going to make you so much tankier. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely think this build is so good. I don't even know. I mean, you die to burst, but you have armor. You have like 25 armor on a 30% uptime, so maybe even higher if you're hitting heroes. So, I don't know. This seems pretty crazy. I think the 16 talent's definitely debatable. But you should have armor going long enough that the armor portion's kind of pointless. The extra attack speed just seems kind of nice. The longer uptime on Inspire means that you get more fuel to rush, more give them some more. Yeah, I think this is the build. I really do. So, this is it, guys. This is the build. I'm calling it now. Again, level 1's debatable. You can go Exterminator in this build. You're just going to lose a good chunk of DPS during fights. But probably not that much, because you need to remember, you always need to divide this talent by 4. So we're currently at... so we're at total damage is 202%, but we split that by 4, so that's 50% increase in damage. That's still really good. Yeah, I think this is the build. Exterminator, if it's if you have other damage on your team and it's a really camp heavy map, but otherwise veteran marksman into basically being unkillable, and just melt people down. Try not to lose your stacks early. As long as you have a couple stacks left, you're good. If you are losing your stacks often, just switch to exterminator. Just because the 22% or the 17% damage bonus that I currently have is just nothing, and you'd rather just go exterminator. So I think both of these talents are good. You don't really need ace in the hole in this build. So I would say exterminator or veteran marksman, depending on the enemy comp. Can they jump on you early game? And exterminator, can they is there any camps that you need to go with? And then otherwise, this build seems really good. It's, again, a little bit lower than like gray main damage, but you're unkillable. Like, yeah, cool. All right, that gives you guys 2 builds to try out. One that I'm very excited about. Either way, I mean, even with exterminator, I'm excited about exterminator as a talent, but I do think that this is probably the best potential for a lone talent, is in a build that makes you practically unkillable. Just looking at that healing too was just crazy. Like, just let me send that dude way over there so I don't have to worry about it. Like, let me get down really low, and then I pop E. Look at that healing though. And it's like you basically don't need to worry about anything. And again, against heroes, this is going to be so much of a lower cooldown. It's crazy. Because that cooldown is going to be cut in half even further because of all these. Yeah. All right. That's it, dudes. That's Raynor's rework. I think this build is going to be very, very strong, and most likely pieces of it will be nerfed. You don't need to nerf a lot because everything's so tied together. You only really need to nerf like 1 or 2 talents, and the whole build is going to be balanced. If Blizzard goes through and nerfs this, I hope they don't just nerf everything, because that's kind of what they like to do, is like shave off little pieces of everything, when all they need to do is nerf like 1 of these, and it's balanced again. Like this, bring this back down to 200% instead of 300%. I think the whole build's balanced. But the fact this is 300%, it's like, okay. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Feel free to check out my other videos. I will be having rework videos coming out for all the heroes reworked, so make sure to check those out. Subscribe, click the bell, whatever everyone else says. And I appreciate it.